Hi, welcome back to the Kiddos YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look how to set up Wi-Fi certificate authentication using Intune and EasyCA and EasyRadius. So first, let's talk about how certificate authentication works. So first of all, you have Intune or Jamf or any other MDM that you're using. Having your device request a certificate from the CA using SCEP. So basically SCEP works by having a shared key between the MDM and the CA, and that's encrypted with the CA key, and it's magically sent through the device with some cryptographic magic there. And then the CA issues a certificate to the device, and now the device has a certificate. That certificate can be user certificate or device certificate. So the advantage of using a user certificate is that you can do policies based on that specific user. So like if the user is part of the students group, you set them into a different VLAN or something like that. The advantage of doing device certificate is the device can authenticate before the user logs into the device. So like if you're doing device based, you can have the devices overnight, like do updates and stuff like that, because it doesn't require the user to be authenticated. And you can do Intune verification checks and different other checks. So this one is kind of like a preference. Some customers prefer doing user-based. Some customers prefer doing device-based. In this video, I'm going to kind of show you both sides of the coin, just so you have both of them. And yeah, so after that, once this device has a certificate, this has to be done on a network, like it has to be connected. So usually we recommend having like a wired network where this happens, like on the onboarding autopilot. And then after that, you connect your networking gear to Cloud Radius, and then the Cloud Radius is going to validate that certificate. And we're going to also validate with Entra ID if that user is still valid or if that user is part of a specific group and so on. So that's kind of the breakdown of how the authentication works. And then Intune will automatically rotate the certificates and everything. So all this setup is kind of set up forget. You don't really have to touch it until like the CA is about to expire. So let's get started. So after that, we have to go and see how to create a certificate authority. So we're going to go to the Kiddos documentation, and all of these docs are going to be linked down below. And as a global administrator, we have to go to register the EasyCA app in your tenant. And this is going to give EasyCA the permissions it needs to seize the groups and do all that stuff. We're going to click accept. And we're going to go back to the docs. And we're going to go back to the page. Usually open it in another tab. And then the second thing we have to do is register the Kiddos Intune application as well. So we're going to go and we're going to register this application. They're different. So as you saw, I'm doing it twice, one for each. This one gives access to the Intune side of things. And then we can validate that they're there. So you can go into your enterprise applications and you should see Kiddos, Kiddos Client, and Kiddos Intune app. So once we have done that, I'm going to create the CA using Azure Marketplace, just because I already have an account and it's not going to let me do it in EasyCA. So you can purchase it through Azure Marketplace, or you can do it directly through us. If you don't have an Azure Marketplace or it's a pain for you to purchase stuff through Azure Marketplace, you can do it straight with us. You enter your credit card, and even without entering a credit card, you get a month free trial. But here I'm just going to go to Azure. And I'm going to create EasyCA. For EasyCA, we have it separate within Azure. EasyRadius is all together, and then you choose a region. But for EasyCA, you can select Australia, EU only, where data doesn't leave Australia. And then we have our global instance. So our global instance allows you to create it anywhere in the world and all that stuff. So we're going to go here. We're going to select a resource group. And this is not really creating anything in Azure. This is just creating a SaaS offering that is only used for billing. So there's no VMs or extra cost. You only pay like the $200 for each CA that you create, or $500 if you're using premium. So we're going to call it Video PKI. And we're going to go to review and subscribe. And we're going to click subscribe. And now we're going to click configure account now, and this is going to send us to EasyCA. We're going to enter our PKI administrators. So these are all the people that are going to be able to create PKIs and stuff like that. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as is, because you can always go to settings and create more and add more people. And I'm just going to click purchase plan. And now we can create our first CA. So we're gonna go here, and I'm just gonna create it in this one. And I'm gonna create a root CA. In this video, I'm just gonna do a 1 tier because we're only gonna use it for Wi-Fi, so we're not gonna use it for anything else. So we can just do a 1 tier PKI. Best practice is to have a 2 tier, so you have a root CA that issues a SCEP Certificate Authority, and that allows us, so if I go here, so best practice is to have a root CA that issues only other certificate authorities, and then you have your SCEP CA that you use for Intune or Jamf or whatever MDM you're using. Then you might have another one for SSL web certificates, another one for code signing, and another one for smart cards / YubiKey. So this allows you to kind of grow, but in this case, we're just thinking we're only going to use it for Wi-Fi authentication. So we're just going to make this our root CA and only have a SCEP CA. We're going to leave everything as default on the cryptographic side of things. Notification email. So we're going to email whenever something's about to expire, all your PKI admins, but we have noticed that a lot of people use admin accounts that don't have emails. So now we require you to have a notification email. We'll take care of revocation and everything, so you can just leave it all as default. And here we're going to select SCEP template. Since we're only using Intune in this video, we're only going to enable Intune SCEP. If you're using Jamf or something else, you're going to also enable the SCEP statics challenge. And we're also going to enable here the self-service user certificate issuance, just so we can test it without having to wait for Intune to push the SCEP certificate to us. And then in here, this is where you set up how long you want your certificates to be. So by default, we do 1 year, which is what Intune defaults to. Then we select our location, and we're going to click Create. Now we're going to download this certificate because we're going to use it later to push it through Intune. And also I'm going to do it manually in my computer. So I'm going to do everything we're going to do. We're going to do it manually in my computer so we understand how it's done and how you can test it. And then also in Intune so we know how to do it in Intune as well. So it's as simple as that. We have created our certificate authority. Next up, we have to create our radius server. So that's going to be the connection here between the router and radius, which will connect to the network and kind of like make everything work. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to Azure. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go to the EasyRadius application, and we're going to register the EasyRadius application. So we already did the Ketos application for EasyCA, so we only have to do the EasyRadius application here. And you know the drill with a global admin, and we're going to click Create. And then we're going to go back to the docs, and we can create it, we can create it straight in the EasyRadius portal, or we can create it in Azure. To keep it all together, we're going to create it in Azure. So we're going to go to the Azure Marketplace. We're going to type EasyRadius. As you can see here, in this one, we only have one. There's no USA and all the other ones. This is because you'll see how it'll let me choose the region later. So we do it, instead of doing it in Azure, we do it directly in our thing. So we're going to call it video PKI radius. So then we're going to click review and create, and we're going to create it. Now that the account is provisioned, we're going to go here and we're going to select where we wanted to create it. So you'll see here we can go to USA, and we're going to create that instance. And then it's going to send us to the website. I recommend just bookmarking this. You can always go back and find your stuff by finding it in Azure. So you can go to SaaS subscriptions and finding here like video and doing that whole thing. But it's just easier to just bookmark portal.easyca.io and the USA. This is going to be empty, but obviously I've been doing videos all day today, so there's some authentications already. So for you, this would be empty. Same with policies, it would be empty for you. With me, I'm going to have 2 over here. So I'm just going to minimize these 2. So for you, it would look something like this. And same as with PKI, you can always add more people in the settings. So we're going to create our new policy. So we're going to name it, and we're going to call it cert auth or whatever you want to call it. And then in here, you're going to enter your IP addresses for all your offices. In this case, you can use, if you're just doing one, you can just click my IP address. We're going to see where you're coming from, and we're going to create it. And you can always add a description like Boston Office. And if you're using Fortinet, you have to click this. Other than that, you can ignore this one. And then we have to accept a certificate authority. So we just created it called VPN CA. So we're going to add it here. Then for server certificate, you can just leave it with the auto-generated one. EasyRadius is just going to generate a certificate for you. But since we're using EasyCA, let's use our own CA, just making it more clean. You know, we use the same CA for everything. So we're going to request a certificate here. And this is a server certificate. And since it's an EasyCA certificate, we'll automatically rotate it. So you don't have to worry. It will automatically rotate and keep up to date with your CA. And that's it. That kind of sets up your whole server side of things. I always say the first half is kind of setting up the server. So you're saying what IP addresses do you trust? What certificate authorities do you trust? Where are we getting the server certificate from? The next part is setting up the access policies. But before we set up our access policies, let's actually set up our Intune certificate so we know how to get it, and also our EasyCA certificate so we can do it manually. So first we're going to go here to our CA and we're going to do view requirements. So this is for the manual side of things. So this is not needed if you're doing only Intune. I just prefer doing everything, and I recommend doing everything manually before we do it in Intune, just to make sure we understand what we're doing and how it works. So let's just call it video VPN CA just so I can find it. And I'm gonna just go here, open my documentation on another side so I can copy and paste. So we're gonna do the user principal name on the subject name. So we're gonna do CN equals this, and then we're gonna select this one, which is the email one. And we're gonna enter the user principal name as a subject alternate name. And this is very important because this is what we're gonna use later. Then we're gonna leave all this as is. We're gonna click add profile and we're gonna save changes. So now we're gonna go here and create our own user certificate. So this kind of emulates what Intune is gonna do. So we're gonna download this certificate, and I'm gonna download the PFX, and I'm gonna save it and install it. So save it, and I'm gonna install it by just clicking next, 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 finish. But we're also gonna download the certificate so we can see what it created. So this is a user certificate, and we can see here that our CA is not trusted. This is because we haven't trusted it. Usually you push this as a trusted certificate in Intune. But in here, let's do it manually so we understand what we're doing. So we're going to install the certificate, the current user, and then we're going to put it in the trusted root certificate authority. So this is going to trust the certificate authority. So now when we open the certificate, it will tell us that it's trusted. So now when we open it, you can see that little X went away. The reason for that is now we told my Windows that that VPN certificate is a trusted root. So it's under the trusted root certificate authority. So now we can see here we have our user certificate, and it has a subject name with my email, but it also has it in the subject alternate name, and the RFC 822, that's just email. It's just a fancy way of saying email. So we know that the email is in this one because we set it up like this in EasyCA. So now let's do exactly what we just did manually. Now let's do that in Intune. So we already have the VPN CA here that we downloaded. So I'm going to go aka.ms/Intune. And I'm only going to do it for Windows, but all of them are kind of the same. It doesn't really change that much between one and the other. So we're going to go to configurations, and we're going to start by creating a new policy. And we're going to select Windows 10, templates, and trusted certificate. So the first thing we're going to do is VPN CA video. The first thing we're going to do is add that to the trusted root store. So we have our VPN CA here, and we're adding it to the computer trusted root. So basically what I just did manually, now we're pushing that to all devices, all users. This doesn't do anything other than say, hey, now you trust this CA. So, you can just add that. Next, we have to create the SCEP policy to create the certificates. So in here, we're going to click SCEP, and we're going to name it SCEP video. And in here, this is the difference. This is where you do user certificate or device certificate. So to keep it the same as we did in EasyCA, we'll have to do user certificate. And in here, we're going to do email address. And then we have to do user principal name here. So this matches exactly how we had it. Well, in theory, we had here this like this. This matches exactly what we had in EasyCA. So now it's going to create the same certificate. In here, we're going to do enroll to TPM if present, otherwise software. We have seen some people have problem with this. So if you're having trouble that the certificate is not showing, you can use software only. TPM is more secure, but for some reason, Windows sometimes doesn't work. Then we're only using this for digital signature. So we're just going to click that one. We're going to select 248 because TPM doesn't support 4K. Then we're going to select SHA-2 because it's 2025, not 2000. And then in here, we're going to select the VPN CA that we created before. And in this video, I called it VPN CA, but you would select the CA that you created before. So you're telling Intune, we're going to issue the certificate from this CA. We want all these other things. And for EKUs, we're just going to use client authentication. And now we have to get the SCEP URL. So to do that, we're going to go back here to EasyCA. And we're going to go to Certificate Authorities. And we're going to go to View Details. Sorry. We're going to go to View Requirements. And we're going to copy this URL. And we're going to click Next. Add it to all users. And once again, this doesn't really do anything other than create the certificate. So there's no harm in doing this. So now if I go back here, SCEP video. So this was doing for users. Now we can create another one just so we can see both of them. In your case, you're just going to do one. In here, I'm just creating both of them just so you know how to do it for devices and how to do it for users. So in your case, you would just choose one. So we're going to go here, SCEP certificate, and I'm kind of rush through it. SCEP device video. And in here, instead of user, we're going to select device. So that, first of all, what that's going to do, it'll put it in the computer certificate store rather than the user computer certificate store, which means that the device itself can access it. Then we have the AAD device ID here. We're going to do DNS in this one. Doesn't really matter. This is just my preference. And this is going to make sense later in the Easy Radius. It's just important to remember which one you select here. You can keep it to DNS to kind of like do it exactly the same as a video. And in here, we're going to do just device ID, which is the Intune device ID. And apparently it's not spelled like that. So let me just get it from the Ketos documentation. So they did it without an underscore. So we're going to go back here. And we're going to put it here. So remember, DNS device ID. And we're going to do the same as the other one. I'm going to go back here, copy the URL. And this is how often you want it to renew. So you can change this to 30% or whatever. We're going to click next. And I forgot to do the root certificate because I'm rushing through this. We're going to click next. We're going to add all users, all devices. and we're going to create. So now we have created both certificates. In your case, just remember you only have to do one of those. And I'm going to clean up here my tabs just so we don't have that many open. So we're back here. So after doing that detour and creating the certificates and explaining, we have it fresh in our minds. So let's just say we're going to create our user policy. And as I said, I'm going to create both. So in your case, use whichever you need. So we want to match it with the Entra ID user. If we don't select match with Entra ID, it will just grab any certificate that was issued by our CA. It's good to go, and it will be good to go. But in this case, we want to be a little more granular, and we want to do, so you remember, we selected email for the user. So in here, email, subject alternate email. If we would have put it in somewhere else, it would be somewhere else. So we would select another one. So if you want to match that user with a group, so like, let's say it's in the students group, you would do this. In this case, I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to do this, and then you can assign it to a specific VLAN. So if you want to make it, okay, these guys go into VLAN 1, you do this. And we're going to click add policy. So now we're going to do the exact same, but for the device. So device, and we're going to select device ID, and the certificate field. In this one, if you remember, we didn't do email, we did DNS. So we're going to select DNS. Device identifier, we're using the Intune device ID. If we would be doing subject name, if we go back here, we can see this is Intune device ID, but if we do subject name, that's AAD device ID. So if we would go back here and we did subject name, then this would be AAD device ID. But in here, we're going to do DNS. And if we would have put something extra on the front of it, so you want to make sure to know that it's an Intune device ID, for example. And you do this, then you would copy this and put it as a prefix here. So that's telling EasyRadius, ignore this first part and then grab the device ID from that. So if you do that, do it. If not, we leave that empty. So if I go back here, we're going to leave that empty just to keep it simple. All right. So the cool part about using Intune device ID, we can actually check the compliance in Intune. So if we go back to Intune, what that will check is if the device is marked as compliant here. So these three devices wouldn't be able to connect if we click this device compliance, but so you can click that, and then you can have a catch-all where, you know, like all the other policies would go and get healthy. And then you can assign VLAN, and let's say we're going to do VLAN 3 for this one, and we're going to click add policy. So you can see we have little arrows because it's going to go in order. So first it's going to track it for user, then it's going to check for device, and if you had more policies, it would keep going until it finds something that matches. So then after that, we can save it. So we're going to click Save Changes. And that created our policy for certificate-based authentication. So next thing we're going to do, we have to connect our networking gear with our Radius server. So we're going to go here. In this case, I'm using Unifi. We have videos for most of the other ones. So we're going to go here to Profiles. We're going to click Radius. We're going to create a new one. Let's call it Video Radius. And we're going to use the IP address here. I recommend, if your instance has multiple regions, I recommend grabbing one IP address for each region. So we're going to go here. Then we have to get our shared secret for that specific IP address. And you can make them all the same if you have multiple IP addresses. And we're going to copy it here, and we're going to add it. We're going to do the same for the other one. So US West here. We're going to go back here. We're going to add it, and we're going to apply changes. So now we have this. We can go to our Wi-Fi. I'm going to use rad eap-tls, and we're going to put it into Video Radius, and we're going to apply changes. So now we have everything set up. It's all connected. It's time to test it. So then we're going to open here our networking. and we're going to find our Wi-Fi that we are using for testing, and we're going to click connect, and we're going to select connect using a certificate. We're going to select the certificate that we just created. Sometimes you might have to restart the computer. You know, Windows and certificates sometimes are not friends. We're going to click OK. And it's asking us if we trust the radio server. We're going to click connect. And I'm going to explain how to get rid of that in Intune now. So as you can see, now we connected using a certificate. And you can always go and check in the audit logs if you're having issues and everything. It should tell you kind of like what the issue might be. So you can always get the logs. And you can see the errors, and usually we'll try to be helpful and send you how to troubleshoot each issue. And you can see here my successful, and since we did the match with Entra ID, we can see the username. And if you want more information, you can download the logs. It has more columns. It's just to make it nice and pretty. We just make it these columns here. So yeah, now we did it manually. We know it works. So we know the whole connection and everything is fine. Now we have to replicate it in Intune. So for that, we're going to go back here to policies because we're going to need that later. And we're going to go to create new policy. We're going to select templates. We're going to do Wi-Fi. And we're just going to name it video Wi-Fi. And we're going to select enterprise. We would name it whatever we are using. So in this case, it would be red eap-tls. Connect automatically in range, yeah. And then for authentication mode, here's where you select. So in this case, we're going to do the user one. But if you were doing machine, you would select machine and your machine certificate that we created. But in this case, we're going to do user. You can do this. Here we're going to select 30. We can do 5 seconds in between. And let's do 10 authentications. And then for EAP type, we're going to select TLS, the one with only one T. And then for server certificate name, so this is where we're going to go back here. And we're going to download the server certificate. And the first one we're going to copy is the subject name. So it's easy radius. I'm just going to put this side to side. So we're going to go here, easy radius, easy radius. Then we're going to go to subject alternate names, and we have to copy all of them. So everything after the equals for each one of them. So all IP addresses. And this is basically to avoid the whole, like, do you trust this Wi-Fi? Do you want to connect? That we had to click connect. This does it automatically. So we're just going to say all of these ones. So now that we added all the subject alternate names and the subject name, we're going to select the root certificate that we use. So in this case, it was the VPN CA video. We're going to click OK. And this basically tells it trust any certificate issued by this CA that has these names on it. So then we're going to do client authentication method, and we're going to do SCEP certificate, and we're going to select the SCEP certificate that we created. So SCEP video. If we were doing device-based authentication, we would select the SCEP device video that we created. And then you would be, you click next, you add it to all users, all the devices. This is when you probably want to test it with some users instead of just going everybody. And you don't want them to have issues. And then you click create. And as simple as that, we have set up certificate-based authentication using Entra ID. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you, and we'll catch you in the next one.